welcome to Gardening with Daddy Pete. Let me figure out what I'm going to say here today. And thank you so much for tuning in with me and Jay today. And Jay, what all have we got on the docket today?
Yeah, we're going to get into some border plants, some privacy, keeping what you want to keep in your yard or out of your yard, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. That's one thing. So before we get started off, I want to thank everyone that does listen in and for the questions and that you've sent in, your comments, and the likes that you do. And Jay can tell you more about where all you can find us and what all we're doing, and because that's his expertise, not mine.
Well, expertise, that's a little bit of a stretch, but you know, I can.
Sounded good.
It did. It sounded great. Good job on that.
Yeah.
But no, if you're new to the Gardening with Daddy Pete podcast or Daddy Pete in general, a little bit about us. We are a Century family farm. We, the Smith family. Dad and I both work for them. Melvin's my father. But yeah,
and Jay's my son.
Yeah, funny how that works together.
Yeah, it's just something else, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, we both work for Mr. Smith here on the farm. So what we do is we compost our dairy cow manure. We're still an active dairy farm, and we go through and we visit garden centers here in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia areas, a little bit of North Georgia, and we do
Florida.
We go a little bit farther out to select areas on the East Coast. We sure do.
Florida, Pennsylvania.
But we offer a premium line of soil amendments and potting soils, some bark mulches as well. So feel free, if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about our products, check out our website at www.daddypetes.com. That is with an S at the end of Pete. But there you can see, I've got our webpage pulled up right now. You'll see a link to this podcast here. You can go on Podbean, check us out on all of your favorite platforms, wherever that might be, Spotify, Apple Music, Prime, and then you can also follow us along on YouTube as well. And with the YouTube videos, you can see Dad and I in a live feed here, what we're doing. So,
aren't you lucky?
Yeah. Lucky, cursed, how that might drive you to Spotify or something else. But,
excuse me.
Look at that however you want to. But with all that being said, we, Dad and I both have our own individual Instagram accounts. Yours is at Melvin Daddy Pete's. Mine is at J Daddy Pete's. And then, of course, we have a company Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube page as well. So find us on all of those socials. We'll stop rambling here about that for a little bit, but we do want to do our due diligence. Check us out and let us know if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer any kind of viewer or listener questions.
Well, one thing, too, though, we'll go ahead and get started. One thing that I've noticed, and the reason that we're doing this podcast today is I've noticed so many people put up border trees, and that, which it may be, to give privacy to their backyard or to line a driveway with, or a certain part to block sun or whatever. But the thing that I've noticed is that people have put out a lot of border trees and without thinking or without knowing. So what we're going to do today is to give you some hints and some ideas on some of the trees that you can use, some of the trees not to use, and where to use these trees and why. Now, we have a list of a few of the border trees that would work well for you. We also have a list of the trees that people use for borders that does not work well for you, and we're going to tell you why. Also, the main thing is when you're doing choosing a border tree, you want to know how wide it's going to get, how tall it's going to get, the location that it's going in. Now, a lot of people, and I've noticed this, and I see power companies come out, or people having to pay tree service companies to come out and top trees because they put them under power lines, they put them under phone lines, cable lines, things that they didn't even think when they were going, because they didn't think that tree would get that high. And a lot of these border trees, and especially the evergreen varieties, do get some tremendous height on them. They get 40, 50 feet tall, and a lot of them will get 20 feet or 25 foot wide. So these are things you need to consider if you're putting them close to your actually property line, or if you've got to look up before you plant. Make sure you're not under power lines or phone lines. And then again, make sure that you're not near, if you live out into the suburb area or the county area, that you're not planting a tree that's getting close to your septic or your fill lines or drain lines from that septic system. And then there's different trees that will actually be more aggressive in doing that. So we're going to kind of start today on what trees that you can use.
So this may sound a little bit like an attack on the Leyland cypress, for a lack of better terms, and it's not a bad tree whatsoever, but it does have its drawbacks, just like anything else is going to. The reason that we're going to kind of address the drawbacks of the Leyland cypress a little bit today is because it's very common in our region of the Piedmont of North Carolina, and especially if you're new to landscaping, it's something that it's readily available. And a lot of neighbors, well, my neighbor has this Leyland cypress. That's what I'm going to go get too, without knowing that there are other options that you can consider. And that's what we're here, is just to, bring light to those other options that sometimes may be looked over and may be a better fit for your landscape.
Well, here's the thing about it. Leyland cypress kind of gets a bad rap in a way. That used to be 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that used to be your go-to border or your evergreen border tree, one that would stay green year round. A Leyland cypress is just like a pine tree. Most of your conifers lose some of their leaves, or if you want to call it their needles, in the summertime, usually from about the end of May, 1st of June on into end of July, and you'll see the inside of that tree, not the outside, but the inside, they drop their needles from the inside. So when you see that tree start turning brown on the inside, that's what they're doing. Like a deciduous tree loses their leaves in the fall and goes on winter without leaves, and then starts back in the spring. Your conifers, that type of evergreen will lose their stems usually in the early summer. So, but one thing about the Leyland cypress, and that people did plant them too close together, they didn't get any air. They are somewhat disease susceptible. Another thing is they do like to attract bagworms, and a lot of people don't even know, because a bagworm disguises its cocoon so well, you actually think that it's a cone that comes along with the tree of the Leyland cypress, and it's actually not. It's a cocoon full of the bagworm. So what we want to do is go on past the Leyland cypress and give you some idea on some good border trees now.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're going along with that, like I said, due to the nature of our podcast here and the nature of our company, we will recommend some of our products as we go along too. Two in particular would be our planting mix and our professional raised bed mix. So as we go along here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our professional landscape mix, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, towards the end of the podcast. But just so you'll kind of be aware of what the bag looks like and what it is, I'm going to pull it up here. If you're watching along on YouTube, you can see the background of it here. So, Dad, what would be your first recommendation for something to replace a Leyland cypress in a landscape? That was a tongue twister for no reason, right there.
Well, I know we've got a list here, but I'm going to kind of jump around on just a little bit, because I'm going to give you my favorites. Now, I'm a big fan of an Arborvitae, and again, green giant Arborvitae to me is a beautiful tree. It grows in a Christmas tree shape. But the only thing about the green giant Arborvitae, that it does get to the 40 to 50 foot height on it. And it usually gets 15 and can go 20 feet out or in circumference. Now, beautiful tree, very much. I hear very little or see very little disease with that tree. The attack on them, the only time that you do is when you plant them too close to start with, and there's no air can get around or through those trees, because they do cover themselves at the bottom. They grow from the bottom up, just like and they're a beautiful tree. But you don't want to plant those trees too close together. Now, I know a lot of people says, well, I'll put them 5 foot apart. And because I want to get that whole border going fast, well, you're way too far. That tree's going to spread out 20 feet. You need to go at least 15 feet apart when you're setting those trees out. And because now these trees grow, usually once they get established in the ground good the first year, they're going to grow anywhere from 2 to 4 foot a year. So they do grow fast, and they're a nice tree. So I do like the green giant arborvitae, and that if you're looking for something a little bit different, there's other types of arborvitaes you can look up for colors, and I think I may even have one on the list here somewhere if I can find it. But they do have different ones on there.
Well, something like your emerald, arborvitae, that's, pretty close to your green giant.
Emerald's a good one, but it only grows about 10 to 15 feet tall.
Exactly, and that's kind of like your globe arborvitaes. Those would be a good alternative for something like along, closer into your house, not necessarily right beside your house by any means, but maybe that's something that you want a shorter border. You still want to have somewhat of a view line, coming down the road with the neighborhood. There's a lot of things to consider there, so it's a very case-by-case basis when it comes to that.
A globe's more on the shrub variety instead of a tree. It's more, and they do have some varieties of the globe that gets up about 4 foot by 4 foot into a ball shape. They usually stay in the ball. But you can also, they have the dwarf type that you can use. And again, they do make along a border edge, walkways, driveways, they look good on. But for a
privacy border,
border, that's not what you want.
It's not ideal unless you just like a really short border and you're trying to keep people from walking in the yard and nothing else.
Yeah, and you can do that too if you're looking for a shorter variety. There's some other things you can do. But now let's take another evergreen here. Now I have some of these in my yard, and they grow massive, and they're the ones that I'm talking about here, like the green giants, the emeralds, and the next one I'm going to talk about is the Cryptomeria. Cryptomeria, the larger variety is a Yoshino, and they get 50 feet, 30 to 50 feet easy, and they're usually 25 foot wide. And that is a Prasco, and it's a 3 to 5 foot a year after it gets established and starts its growing, so they grow fast. But again, make sure you're looking overhead. Make sure if you're putting it on property lines that you're going to have to slide over at least 10, 12 feet anyway. So these are things you want to think about. But on the other hand, now there is another Cryptomeria that's the radicans. Radicans do grow a little bit shorter and a little less wide, but they're still in the 35 to 45 foot range. Now, the black dragon, that would be the one that you want if you want to keep it, if you're going under power lines and stuff like that. They grow 6 to 10 feet tall. And usually they don't go out much more than about 3.5, 4 foot. Maybe you can see some go 5 foot wide, but that's going to be it. So if you want to stay with something, and here's the thing about it with a Cryptomeria, you can walk up to them. They have multiple branches on them. And when you look at them, you think that they're going to be so sticky like the little needles going out, but when you touch them, they're actually very soft and very, very much attractive. The ones that I have, they've been out probably, I'm taking a guess, probably 20 years. And they're every bit of 50 feet tall. But you know what? I don't have any problem with the seeds, no limbs coming out of them like you do with a lot of the other border trees. So Cryptomeria, along with your arborvitaes, is another good one.
Yeah, and you were mentioning power lines too. When you're considering something along those lines, you're wanting something in that 15 to 20 feet height. So the ones that we've just mentioned here, the arborvitaes, they do get on up in their height a little bit, like we just mentioned. And one more to kind of go along with that kind of has that similar Christmas tree look, would be something like an eastern red cedar. That is a native plant to North Carolina. It's going to get on up there, closer to your 50 feet, 40 to 50 feet tall if you let it get mature. It's going to have similar properties to your Leyland cypress, just without less care, but it's got that signature cedar bark. It's beautiful. But one thing that you do want to consider with that if you're planting that along a border and you've got some apple trees not too far away, you got to look out for, your apple cedar rust. So
Right.
that might be something to consider, if you've got some apple trees that are close by to you, maybe want to choose something else. But if you don't, that's a great alternative. It's a beautiful tree, especially if you're after that Christmas tree type look of the Leyland cypress.
Yeah, because they do have a blue hue to them at a certain time of year, and their berries are like a blue. They actually look like a miniature blueberry with a little frost on them. So, yes, they are nice. But again, if you have a neighbor, since you mentioned that has a lot of the regular old cedar trees is what we call them around here. They grow native. You see them a lot on fence posts, and they'll grow up on the fence line. They grow huge. But if your neighbors happen to have it or a fence close and you're thinking about setting out apple trees, then again, you might want to look for varieties that may be rust resistant, because your just standard variety apples will take on that cedar rust. So that's something else for you to think about, just since Jay brought that up. So again, you want to look at your surrounding area when you go planting trees, not only up, but look out and look into your neighbor's yard, see what's going on, so you don't have any problem. You go ahead and plant for that. Now, one other thing that I like for an evergreen tree, and I do like evergreen, the reason I plant so many evergreens and a lot of the shrubs I plant, like camellias, because camellias you can get, with those blooming, you can get them, what do they do, fall blooming, late summer, early fall blooming. You get them in the winter blooming. A lot of people call them the winter rose because they usually bloom. The ones that we have, usually one variety I do have usually blooms right after Christmas. And then some bloom even in the spring. So I like to see color or green, especially in the fall. So that's why in my landscape, I've chosen so many of the things like the Cryptomeria, the Arborvitae, the camellia, where I can keep something going year round. But let's don't forget an old time favorite, and that's the hollies. Okay. Now, the American holly, one good thing about the American holly, it'll grow in the edge of the woods, or it will grow out into the open. You have no problem with full sun, but it does require some sun. Now, the only thing with an American holly, and it's a native tree around here, but you're looking and out probably in full sun, you can go 50 feet on that thing in just a minute. So you've got to watch for that. Now, there's other ones. There's a Yaupon holly that works good. They only go 15 to 25 feet. And there are some dwarf varieties that even get smaller than that. Needlepoint hollies, they get around 10 to 15 feet tall, but they will go about 10 feet wide. So again, keep that in mind when you're planting them. Don't put them 5 foot apart because they're going to spread 10 foot apart, okay? So you want to keep it around that 8 foot realm, 8 to 10 feet. Another good one is a needlepoint holly. They're 10 to 15 feet high. But again, this one will get about 10 foot wide. Steeds holly, you're looking at 6 to 8 feet, 3 to 5 foot. Now, that's a good one if you just want a short border or you're going under power lines. You want to get close to your property line there. Use the Steeds. That's it. And then another one, and I think's great, and I have some of these planted, and you usually get a lot of red berries, and that's the Nellie R. Stevens. But now again, Nellie R. Stevens is not going to get but about, most of the time, unless they go wild, you can usually say they go 10 to maybe 12 feet. But they will get wide. They will get 6 to 8 feet wide in a heartbeat. But most of the times, they stay within that area there. So, and that's another good one to take on. But that just gives you an idea of some of the evergreens that you can plant. And we're going to...
Well, a couple things on the hollies, too. In a homestead type situation, say that you're wanting to make the most out of your property. You're needing something to serve more than just a border. Well, guess what? You get that Nellie R. Stevens with those beautiful red berries. Come Christmas time, holiday seasoning, you've got something that you can make wreaths out of now, too.
Oh, that's true.
And then also with their leaves being pointed as they are, you got a little bit of deer resistance there, keep out of your garden. And so there's a lot of benefits to a holly. Now, if you've got small children playing basketball that are going to fetch the ball out of the hedges every so often, maybe not the best choice.
Well, it just toughens them up.
Well, depending on your discipline level, but yeah, it might be something you want to shy away from, but there's a lot of benefits to a holly. That's one of my personal favorites.
Well, let's talk about the trees that you should not plant now. And one of the ones that I made the mistake on 25 years ago, so I'm going to go ahead and let you in on that I actually made the mistake on, and that was the Bradford pear. Now, Bradford pear is a beautiful tree when it's growing, if you can keep it that way. The problem with the Bradford is it's an invasive tree. You can look over and you can keep mowing, and 20 foot away, you're going to see one pop off. It roots seems to run everywhere, just to be honest with you. Another thing is it's a very brittle tree. Wind comes, a little bit of ice, a little bit of snow. You see so many of them with one side of them broke out, the middle of them broke out after just a small storm. And so they're not really weather resistant. Another thing with the Bradford pear is in the spring, they put on a beautiful show and it looked like a snowball, but the awfulest smell to those blooms you've ever seen. So those trees usually, and I'm a little bit lucky, mine's broke out some, but they are still somewhat living. They're dying now because they're dying off, but they're usually a 15, and you're lucky to get 20 years out of that tree. Whereas if you plant that Arborvitae or you plant that holly, you're looking at a tree that's probably going to be there 50 plus years.
Yeah.
Honestly, unless something comes by and actually kills it on purpose.
Yeah, I know you're pushing 25 years on yours now, close to it?
Probably somewhere around there, but look at how much trouble we've had with them, and it's time to take them out now.
Well, it was funny back when I was still living with you. I was working in Charlotte at the time. I woke up, had to start at 7 a.m. and 5:45 in the morning to beat the morning rush. I was leaving out one morning to get to the top of the driveway because Dad's got a longer driveway. And I get to the top of the driveway, and there wasn't that bad of a storm that night. It was just a little wind, and there's a whole half of a Bradford pear laying across the driveway, completely blocking into the neighbor's yard. And I'm like, well, thank God for four-wheel drive, I guess. But
20 feet, went all the way down to where it wied out of the stem, which they wide out about 5 or 6 foot high. It cracks us off, and honestly, the only thing that I've seen in the neighborhood, usually if you have enough wind, you're going to see something. The only thing I seen was a few Bradford trees, and we got one of them.
Between that and the magnolia at my house, that's almost burnt up in Milwaukee Sawzall. But there was a joke going around a few years ago on the Bradford pear, said the best way to prune them is go 6 inches from the stem and get your chainsaw out.
Yeah.
But we're not here to hate on everybody. If you like them, fine. That's up to you. But that's just not my choice tree. But
another tree you need to be very careful about is a willow tree or a weeping willow tree. They put out a lot of trash in your yard. They break easily. But here's the thing with a willow. Those roots will run 150 feet just to get to water. So there you go again in your drain lines for your septic system. If you've got a well, anywhere that it can get a foundation of your home, these roots will find water. So anywhere that maybe you've got a damp place around one side of your house, and that tree might be 50 feet from it or 75. And if that's the only place it can find water, those roots will go like crazy. So be careful when you start planting willows. Willows are made to go by the stream. That's usually where they're native at. So keep them there. And I guess, Jay, we've got about time for one more maybe.
Yeah, what you're going to notice on a lot of these, the common problems on these plants that the border trees you don't want to plant is going to be in the roots. It's either going to be one of two things. It's either going to be they're running to find water, or they're not deep enough and you're going to have wind resistance. So that's something common that I was noticing here between these varieties we were researching. It's all going to come back. It's all, the root is the root of it, kind of thing.
And here's another thing you got to think about too. You're thinking about maintenance, because those evergreens that we talked about are virtually a maintenance-free tree. They really are. I mean, you plant them and you let them go. Now, we kind of give you an idea on what to plant. And of course, there's other varieties out there, check what works well in your area, check with your extension agent, look it up online. We kind of give you an idea on a couple. There's several more trees that you don't want to plant for border trees, and a lot of them you don't even want in your yard, period. So kind of do your homework on those a little bit. But when you are, if you're putting down a new border tree, make sure when you dig those holes for those plants that you bought that you make it at least a third bigger around than what the pot is. Make it the same height. You want to make sure that the level of soil that's in that pot is the same level when you put it in the ground, only raise it up about an inch. Now, with the dirt that you've taken out of the hole, we want you to use a 50-50 mixture of the Daddy Pete's planting mix. We've designed that to plant trees and shrubs with, and that's going to give that plant that quick start that it needs. It's going to have the nutrients for it. It's already got the beneficial microbes in the soil. And I know the areas that we're dealing with around here, and mostly if you make a streak through the south, it's going to be clay or red clay, and it needs to be amended. That way to make sure that it gets the amount of water that it needs, that those roots can spread out and grow out instead of grow any other way, because that's what the more roots and the farther out they go, the more stability you have in that tree. The more that it can get water without having to run somewhere for it, like the willows and things, which a lot of these evergreens don't have that tendency. But use that. And then if you're planting them for the first time this fall, you want to protect those roots and you want to feed them a little bit more. Use our professional landscape mix. Our professional landscape mix makes a nice looking mulch, but it also it's a combination, 50% of our Daddy Pete's composted dairy manure, 50% of our bark. Now, not only does it make a nice mulch, it protects and holds the moisture correct through the wintertime and into the next summer when the hot heats, while this tree is establishing itself, but it's also every time it kind of rains or whatever, it's going to help mulch and feed. So you get two benefits with one with the Daddy Pete's professional landscape mix. And that works well in your perennial beds or anything. Like if you want to go for the winter, you want to, your hydrangea, you want to, mulch it a little bit. Some of your bulbs, some of your other shrubs, you need to do that. Even that works well in a lot of your herb gardens, just so that you can make sure that you've got that extra layer for the winter months coming on. Now, this is August now, and it's not going to be long till we're going to start talking about winter, and we need to start thinking about it. So protecting those plants, keeping an even moisture year-round works well, and that's what the mulch does, and the Daddy Pete's landscape mix has been designed to mulch and feed.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's just some of the things that kind of get you thinking on that. And if you got any questions in.
Yeah. I mean, like we were saying earlier in the podcast, our website is daddypetes.com. That is with an S. There from the homepage. We try to get everything there on the homepage. Of course, you'll see the link to the podcast going to Podbean or the YouTube videos. And we also have other YouTube videos besides just the podcast as well. We've got some instructional videos, product information. That's something that we're going to be doing a little bit more of, hopefully this fall. Probably going to be more on the social media side of things as far as Instagram Reels. That's something that Dad and I are looking into. So if you guys have some ideas for content that you're wanting to see, you have questions, that helps us out too. Send them in. So we're happy to answer your questions, and we have fun doing it. So even podcast topics, we'd love to hear what's on your brain, because that's what we're here. That's our slogan here at Daddy Pete's, is we help you grow, and we take that very seriously. So there's nothing we would rather do than help you succeed in your garden. So,
well, that's true. And the thing is, your questions mean a lot to us, not only to us, but to other people too, because we've got a lot of people that may not have time to stop and ask a question when it comes across their mind. And then, like, if they're like me, maybe forget it by the time they get to where they can. But by you asking that question, you're not the only one that's got that question. I promise you that. And so go ahead and send it in. And that way we know what's on, not only on your mind, but I'll guarantee you it's on somebody else's too. And we can find an answer. Now, here's the thing about it. We don't have all the answers, but we will get those answers for you, because, that's what we, kind of promise to do here. we want to make sure that we get you the correct information, not just make up an answer because somebody had it on Facebook or, my grandfather used to have a saying that a piece of paper would lay still and let you put anything on it. And I think our internet's got like that, with a lot of people that has an opinion, but they can't back it up with research. And that's why we like to send you to the extension pages and to people we know and trust that's been in the business for years, that we know they have the correct and the right answer, and that's what we're going to get for you. So I do want to thank you for tuning in and listening to our podcast. Again, go to our webpage, shoot those questions out here, and we'll get them.
Yeah, and while you're on the website, check out our Where to Buy tab. That'll show you the dealership. You can put in your zip code, find the dealer closest to you. You can call them, stop by, say hello, pay them a visit, support your local independent garden centers. You will not find Daddy Pete's in a box store. We don't deal with corporate chains. That is something we firmly believe in, that we're a local company and we're going to support local as well. So we appreciate you guys listening to us today. And if there's anything that we can answer for you, anything we can do to help out, again, feel free to visit our website and contact us.
Yeah, and again, here, if you go on our store finder and for some reason you can't find a store that's close to you, just give us a call here at the farm. Our website's got the phone number. Just call us in, and we'll be glad to look it up for you. You just, give us your address, whatever, or, if you don't want to make the call, you want to email it in, go ahead and do that. But we'll get back to you. Well, I guess until next time, we're going to have to say goodbye here in a minute because it's been a little bit. We've enjoyed it.
Yep. It's been a great time. Thank you guys for listening to us.
And until next time, you've been listening to Gardening with Daddy Pete.